So hello everybody and welcome to this guided practice session presented by the Contemplative Studies Centre at the University of Melbourne. I'm Dr. Colin Joyce, I'm an Insight Fellow at the Centre. I'd like to begin the session with an acknowledgement of country. We respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the unceded land on which we work, live and learn, the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nation. We pay respects to elders past, present and future, and to any Indigenous people present today. We are delighted to welcome Alejandro Chaoul to facilitate the Trul Khor Tibetan Yoga meditation series over the next 4 weeks. Ale is, sorry, I hope I get that right, is director of the Jung Center's Mind, Body, Spirit Institute in Houston, Texas, and a contemplative fellow at the Mind and Life Institute. For the past 20 years, he has been teaching and researching the benefits of Tibetan mind-body practices for people affected by cancer. So please note that this is the first introductory session that's being recorded, so please keep your camera and microphone off while Ale is presenting. In the meantime, please feel free to post your comments and reflections in the chat, and there will be time at the end of the session for questions and discussion, although this will be edited out of the final recording. So I'll encourage you to put any questions that you have into the Q&A, and we'll come back to that. So welcome, Ale. Good to see you.
Thank you, Colin. It's great to be here with you all, even online. And yes, I'm Alejandro Chaoul. I'm originally actually from the other down under, from Argentina, and um, and I'm now in Houston. And the practices that I'll bring today are from the Burn Buddhist tradition. It's the indigenous tradition of Tibet. Um, and I'll share a few slides at the beginning just to share some of the concepts. Um, but basically, what we're going to be doing is this Trul Khor. Um, and just briefly, Trul Khor, one of the ways that can be translated is kind of the magical movements of breath and channels. And I'll tell you more about it today. We'll start practicing, and some of the practices relate more to the body. Some of the practices relate more kind of to the energy, including breath and sound. And some of the practices actually include more to the mind. And so we'll do some of each. And so you start getting a little taste of this introduction to Trul Khor. So with that, let me start by sharing some slides. Um, Let me see if this is the right one. I think it is. And so here you have two of the monasteries where I've trained. On the left, Tritarnobutse in Nepal, where I started learning the Tibetan yogas in the early 90s. And then on the right, Menri Monastery in India. And this is where I did more of my kind of intense training, and Menri Monastery is in India. As Kulin mentioned, I work within the Burn tradition, the Ligmincha Institute particularly, headed by Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. And then I worked for 20 years at MD Anderson Cancer Center, and some of these practices, how we included them with people in the cancer journey. And now I'm directing the Mind Body Spirit Institute here in Houston as part of the Jung Center. And these are my teachers. So on the left, you see Lopon Tenzin Namdap, who's now 98 years old. He lives in Tritarnobutse. And I met him back in 91, and I was smitten by him and continued in that tradition. A couple of years later, I met one of his main students and also a teacher in his own right, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, who you see there, kind of reading together. And this was a picture that I took in 2000 in a retreat we did at Tritarnobutse at the beginning of the millennium. And on your right, you see His Holiness Lungto Tempanima Rinpoche. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he was also very instrumental in my learning of Trul Khor, particularly in the 2 month intensive that I did at Menri Monastery. And as I was saying earlier, when we talk about um, the tradition and how we see ourselves, we really see ourselves through the three doors: the door of the body, the door of the energy, which includes breath and speech, and the door of the mind. And actually, through these three doors, we connect to what we call the true nature, this sense of who we really are without all these veils and all these identities that we get entangled with. And in the Tibetan yoga or this Tsalung Trul, there's all these movements, and on the left you see this picture from the Lulakang in Lhasa in Tibet. Um, and as you can see, different than some of the other yogic traditions where most are fixed asanas, here they are in movement. And one of the aspects that we do is that as we breathe in, we hold the breath. And then sometimes we re-inhale and expand the breath, either in the whole central channel or in particular chakras. And on the right, you see the view of how we see the subtle body. And the subtle body in this case has three channels. And in this case, the channels do not cross. I know in other traditions they do. And so, different traditions you'll see that they view even the inner aspect of the body different. And it's not, in my view, that one is right and one is wrong, but rather that for different practices, we use different aspects of how we view, how we connect with the subtle body. And again, one of the other ways that we are composed, uh, both externally and internally, is the five elements of earth and space and fire and water and air. And you can think of those externally, but also internally, you can think of the earth as our flesh and bones, and the fire of the heat in our body, the water in our fluids, the air, our breath, and the space, our consciousness. And in this way, we're formed by the five elements and we connect with their support. And each of them actually has a different aspect of breath. And in the Tsalung Trul, we use these five kinds of breath that we also see in Tibetan medicine: the upward moving breath, the life force, vital breath, the fire and equanimity breath, the downward and clearing breath, and the pervasive breath. And today we'll talk and practice more with pervasive breath. And also, not only we talk about the three channels, but within the central channel, um, we talk and we practice with five chakras. And I know other traditions have seven chakras or more. It's not that we lost some chakras, is that really for this practice, these are the ones that we use. Some of our texts actually talk about 72,000 chakras, so there's plenty of chakras. Sometimes we use one chakra, mostly the heart, or sometimes we use three chakras, kind of the crown, the throat, and the heart. And sometimes we include all five, as here, including the navel and the secret chakra. And really, the whole point is to really bring that energy all into the central channel. And in that central channel, as we get into the five chakras, we're able to move that breath, that energy, because the chakras are both the places where the energy can flow, but also where it can get stuck. So part of what we do in these practices is kind of release the inner traffic jam in each of these places so that the breath and the energy can flow. And there's different kinds of breathings. I'll mention one kind of breathing that we'll learn during these 4 weeks, which is the 9 breathings of purification. Many of the different Tibetan traditions have 9 breathings of purification. Other traditions, particularly in the Indian tradition, they also have alternate nostril breathings. And so there's some similarities and also some uniqueness. And partly as we think of the three channels, when we clear the right channel here, we're clearing all obstacles that relate to anger, to aversion, to irritation, and so forth. But the whole purpose is that as we connect to that emotion, we are able, as we let go, open that door to let it go, to reconnect to that space that now is available for us, not to keep engaging in the anger or aversion. And the same as we clear the left channel, we clear those aspects that relate to attachment, to control. And again, as we release that, is can we connect more to that space that is now available to us? And then in the central channel, the sense of confusion, doubt. And so as we clear these three main, what sometimes we call the three poisons or the three afflictive emotions, we are able to clear and connect more clearly internally through the channels and the space of the channels. And so the channels themselves become a really useful tool. Sometimes we say that the breath is like this wild horse that needs to be guided by the mind, the rider, and where does it guide it? Through the channels, the pathways. And then through that, again, coming into the central channel and trying to be more from that duality of anger and attachment, or aversion and greed, or yes and no, or no and yes, to come of this center and remove the aspect of confusion and bring more clarity. And some of these are the text that these are based on. This is part of the Mother Tantra. You see on the top the Tibetan text. On the right side, you see a translation on that particular chapter, which is part of the Mother Tantra. And then on the left, a book that Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche made of the practices themselves, called Awakening the Sacred Body. And then for the Trul Khor of the Atri, which is what we'll learn some of today as well, is, and in this series, is again, the top you have the Tibetan text, and then in the bottom, one of my books called Tibetan Yoga for Health and Well-Being, that explains not only some of the practices, but also some of the research that we have done with that. And particularly this instructions of the an which is this letter in Tibetan. You see it on the right as just this black ink done by actually Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. On the right, you see this white, which means like crystal clear. And as you are this crystal clear and your awareness is like light in that crystal, rainbows can manifest. And so part of the practice is to clear the obstacles. So as we become more clear, our actions of body, speech, and mind can be like rays of light, like rainbows, bringing both into our life and the life of others. And again, this last one is a text of the Shangshu Ninju Trul Khor, another Trul Khor text. You see it on the right, and then which on the top, it's the root text from the Shangshu Ninju. On the bottom is commentary done by Shartsa Tashi Jansen in the 19th, 20th century. On the right, you see my book on this text called Tibetan Yoga, the Magical Movements of Body, Breath, and Mind. And these are my teachers again, and I wanted to share this because for me, this is part of the importance of the connection of this lineage. And this is a very recent photo. Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche went to visit Lupin last month in Nepal, and this is a picture that they sent, and it just brings me so much joy, this connection to a lineage. In the same way, whenever we talk about our ancestors, whether it be in the indigenous traditions, in our own traditions, this is how, for me, when I'm connected truly, this is how I feel. So I wanted to share this photo with you. And also for future reference, if you want to connect with me, this is my email and my webpage. So enough of that, and maybe there'll be questions later on that. I wanted to start with some practice. And my plan today, I always have a plan A, which is I'm thinking today that I'll introduce a short meditation with breathing, which is a way of centering and connecting internally. And then what I want to do is a connection to sound, and particularly today to the sound of ah, which is a very simple and yet very deep practice. As one of my teachers, Namkha Nobu Rinpoche, would say, if you can connect through those three ah, it's like a very deep guru yoga or a connection to both your external teacher and your internal teacher. And if you're connected, then that's all you need. And think of connection. And I don't see the audience, but I imagine that many like me remember when internet was not just you put a password and you're connected, but actually it was something like diddy 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 diddy, and then finally D. And when you had that D, that connection, suddenly you're not just connected, you're connected to the World Wide Web. In the same way, with this three ahs, or with some breathings, or with some movements, these are all opportunities, body, breath, and mind, to connect to that deep sense of connectedness, both to yourself and others. So this is what we'll plan today, give you different opportunities of doing that. So if you are preferably seated, I don't know where you are, and if you have that opportunity, I would encourage you to seat. If you can't, for whatever reason, of course, lie down, stand up, see whatever is comfortable for you. If you're seated, you could be seated on a chair, you could be seated on a cushion. See again what's useful as I'll guide this short practice. And as you listen to the sounds of the bells dissolving in silence, take this as an invitation to be more present in this moment by bringing your mind's attention on your breath and breathing in and out through your nose. If you need to breathe through your mouth, that's fine too. But see what happens if you breathe just through your nose, both in the inhalation and the exhalation. And see if you can bring that breath not just into your lungs or chest, but lower towards your abdomen and back through your nose. So with your mind, you're guiding that wild horse of the breath through your body. And by bringing it lower into your abdomen and back through your nose, you're slowly eliciting that relaxation response to support a sense of calmness. As you keep on doing that, we can accommodate our body a little bit. So whether you're sitting on a cushion or a chair, you can notice your sits bones touching that surface and being supported by that surface, as well as maybe your feet or your legs touching the ground. And as you keep on breathing lower into your abdomen, feeling that you can feel supported not just by that surface, but actually by the earth. And as we open to the support of the earth, we're actually in many different parts of the earth, each of us. So we're all interconnected and supported by Mother Earth. So maybe a moment of appreciation and gratefulness. And if your mind gets distracted, gently bring it back to your breath. And if it's useful, you can even visualize your breath as green light, the pure color, the pure element, or the color for the pure air element. Green light. So if your mind gets distracted, gently bring it back to your breath, visualizing it as green light. breathing from your nose into your abdomen and back through your nose. And you may want to put a hand right in front of your belly button and notice that you can inflate your abdomen, receiving that air at the inhalation and letting go at the exhalation. Just a couple more breaths in this way as you also relax your eyes, whether they're closed and but not too tight, or slightly open, looking to the tip of your nose and downwards, peaceful gaze. Just focus on your breath and let go tensions of your brain, of your head, of your eyes, of your jaw. Relaxing your mouth and placing your tongue in your upper palate as you breathe more easily through the nose. Relaxing also your shoulders and all the burden that we might carry, almost like a backpack full of rocks. Letting it go, at least for now. Keep on breathing. Enjoy the letting go of tensions and the space that you can re-inhabit with more awareness. Relaxing the back and the lower back. Back feeling supported by the earth and the lower part of the body. And from the sits bones all the way to the crown, elongate kindly your spine, stretching every vertebra. And if it's comfortable, stretching your arms up a little bit, relaxing the tensions as you stretch. Elongating your spine, but also allowing your joints to wiggle and dance. Your elbows, your wrists, your fingers, and your shoulders. Stretch your arms to the sides or upwards and release more tensions in your shoulders and breathe into your heart 3 times. Connecting through breathing as you lower your hands and place them on your lap, palms up, elbows out in this posture, equanimity posture. Left on top of right, elbows out, so you're focused, resting, and open. Resting for a moment in that space that the stillness of your body allows. Breathing in the stillness of our body allows us to enter in the space of our subtle body and rest. And as you notice that you might be more relaxed, this could be a meditation on its own. But I want to add the sound. So as we relax more into this resting meditation, you can bring a hand or both hands to your heart, to your heart center or heart organ, and just check in. What is cluttering your heart? What kind of connection you need? And as we still feel the connection to the earth and the connection to each other and the spiritual connection, not just from the Burn tradition, but from your own tradition or traditions. We'll sing Ah 3 times. And as we do that, it's a sense of releasing what clutters us and reconnecting to the space in our heart. And as the sound of the ah and its vibration dissolves back into silence, maybe there's an opportunity to that connection, to that deep and stay. Savor that connection. If you get disconnected, come back to your breath, come back to your heart, maybe come back to the eye. Back straight, shoulders relaxed, heart area open. There's an opportunity to open it both to yourself and to others. And staying in that connectedness. Slowly we can stretch our body and massage any part of the body that needs it as we kindly open and close our eyes a few times and reintegrate with the external world without losing touch of our inner home. So we do it slowly, very slowly. So that could be a practice in itself, and usually if this would be the last practice, what we would do is we call it share the benefits or dedicate the benefits, not just for ourselves, but to all beings. But I wanted to share one more practice before we do that. And this practice is a movement practice, and it comes from the Mother Tantra, from the inner Tsalung practices, and as I was mentioning earlier, related to pervasive breath. And in this practice, it has 4 parts. It has a part where we exhale. And as we exhale, we actually bend from the waist down. And basically what we do is we crunch. We just release all the air, not just kind of exhaling, but even feeling it from every pore, like we just clench down a little bit and we exhale and we rest exhaling there for a moment. So that's step 1. Step 2 is we inhale. So we inhale, welcoming all that new breath, kind of feeling, right? At every moment, we have millions of cells dying, millions of cells born. So those new cells that are born are now imbued with this new breath, fresh new breath. You can even visualize it as green light if that is useful. And as you breathe in, you hold it for a moment. And you can either hold it in the whole central channel or just in your body. And as you hold it, then the very important part, we re-inhale. As we re-inhale, what we're doing is we're activating this breath as medicine, as Lopin says. So this medicine of pervasive breath allows us to extend from the center to the periphery, like a mandala, Gilkor, right? And so as we extend, we feel that breath extending all the way through the arms to the fingers, from the legs to the toes, all the head and all the sense organs, and we extend, extend, and then exhale and relax. And as we relax, we feel we relax through every pore. So let me do it once, and then I'd like to invite you to do it together with me 3 times. So let me see if this you know, camera helps me. So this is the way we'll do it. So we take a moment and we notice what we need to let go, and maybe something that I want to welcome, that we want to welcome today. So let me do it once. So as we exhale through every pore, we come back to this posture of equanimity. Usually we have our legs crossed, but whatever is comfortable for you, even if you're sitting on a chair, is fine. But back straight, shoulders relaxed, heart area open, hands in equanimity supporting. Okay? So, I invite you to do it 3 times together with me, um, and or at your own rhythm. And then after that, we'll stay with that sensation of having cleared and rested, and then a sense of dedication of the benefits with all beings, which sometimes we say it's like the nectar. This is nectar that we accumulated, and now we pour it in the ocean so everyone can drink from it, including oneself. So let's do it together, and then there'll be time for questions. Okay? So take a moment to breathe into your heart and notice what you're ready to let go and what you want to welcome today. An intention for your benefit or healing, and maybe one that also includes others. And when you're ready, exhale, inhale, re-inhale and expand, exhale, let go. Keep on breathing, resting, feeling that some of those obstacles are released through every pore. More access to inner space as we do it again. Keep on allowing things to release, and welcome that new breath and recentering as we do it one more time. And rest a little more now in the seated posture. Through the movement, released some clutterings in our body, energy, and mind. Resting now, back straight, shoulders relaxed, heart area open, supported by the hands in equanimity. Eyes open or closed, whatever is comfortable for you. As you breathe and rest more fully in your heart. Usually we can stay here as long as the experience remains fresh. But as we need to close, take a moment, whatever you feel you've gathered, maybe more inner space, more clarity, more loving kindness or compassion or joy or equanimity. Just feel you can share it throughout every cell of your body and not only physically but emotionally, mentally and spiritually, but also sharing it from your heart to others, others that you know, others that you know that they're suffering, others that you want to wish well, but even expand that even more to all beings without exception. Pouring that nectar in the ocean so it's available to everyone, including yourself. And so as we close, take a moment to do a couple more conscious breaths as you stretch, massage any part of the body that needs it. And slowly open and close your eyes a few times as you reintegrate with the external world, not losing touch with your inner. Thank you. I hope that was useful and we have some time for questions.
Thank you, Alejandro. Um, I just had a quick question. I found that the practice was very, um, by going to the breath, was kind of brought me into um, the last time I was heavily breathing, which was when I was exercising. And I started to see that my breath would become similar to that and started to deepen a little bit, and but also get a little bit kind of, you know, connected to the excitement of the exercise. Um, would you um, comment on like how to navigate some of those things that happen when you start to breathe more deeply, and how to monitor it a bit?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. So, here we're not really doing kind of a hyperventilation or, strong breathing, but yes, we are, as you noticed, we are breathing in a way that it's deeper than for most of us. And so, one of the things that we're trying to do is that by breathing deeper into our abdomen, we're trying to elicit that relaxation response that Herbert Benson has, researched over 40 years ago and many research after. Um, but yes, as you notice that if you are feeling more kind of accelerated in your breath, and sometimes that also accelerates your mind, your agitation, that you have an opportunity to self regulate. So again, the mind carries the breath as the rider drives or rides the horse. And so in that guiding, when you notice that, you have an opportunity to breathe slower, or maybe you need more energy. So you regulate, and that's one of the beauties here, that you are in control and you can self-regulate with that. Does that make sense?
Mm, thank you. I'd like to invite anyone else with some questions. For
And I want to invite the audience also to open their cameras if they want
mm,
to. It's always nicer to see people rather than just names, if you want. And any questions, of course.
you have anyone coming up? Alejandro, could you tell us a little bit about what you'll be expecting, what you'd like to do over the next few weeks, the
Sure.
sessions?
Sure. My plan A is to share with you some more movements and breathings and maybe sounds, but certainly focusing more on movements and breathings. Um, and to hear more from you what is useful and how we can include it into a practice session. My hope is that, like for example, what we did today, both of those could be practices on their own. You could also do them together. And so that hopefully you'll have a little bit of a toolbox, and maybe you already have your toolbox, and this adds to your toolbox of practices that you can use. And we can also discuss more how to use different practices and so forth.
Fantastic. Thank you. Rebecca has a question that I missed, sorry, initially. Um, Rebecca was talking about for the second inhale, I found that I didn't have much space because I'd taken the first full breath. I'm not sure. Is this normal, or would you, Rebecca, recommend not such a a full first breath to allow further space for that extra inhalation? Not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I think like anything new that we learn, we start gauging ourselves into how to do it. So yes, sometimes at the beginning we inhale too much, and then there's no much, as a friend of mine says, topping it off. So you start regulating and notice maybe I don't need to bring all the breath, that I can in that first one, and just be comfortable with bringing whatever 80%. I don't know how we gauge that, but some, good amount of breath, and then just have a little more space, because that extra breath is really important, because as Lopuntenzi Namdak says, it's what activates the medicine of that breath, activates it to expand throughout the body.
thank you. We have a question here from Adriana. Can you see any adaptation of this in the context of solo weightlifting, chest press, etc., in a non-rushed way? And how to? Hmm.
What was that again? Sorry, I
Oh,
missed it.
can you see any adaptation of this in, say, physical exercise in the context of solo weightlifting, for instance, like to use the breath to help to push more weight, or anything to do it in a non-rushed way?
Oh, that's interesting. You know, I don't. I think what would be more important from traditionally is if you are doing that. So let's say you're using the breath and you're, whatever it supports that weightlifting. That then, as you finish, you take a moment to rest, so that it's all these movement, it's really about resting with more awareness. So the movements are useful so that they can enhance that experience. That's why they're called magical movements, so that through the movement you are able to then rest. Otherwise, we just stay in the movement. It's almost like children playing. So, yes, use it for exercise, use it for walking, use it, but then make sure you take a moment to rest with that. It's almost like the resting is savoring the results, the fruits of what you cultivated.
Fantastic. So we've reached the end of the session. So thank you very much, Ali, for today's session. And to our audience for joining us. The Contemplative Study Centre is pleased to host these sessions for our community, and your feedback means a lot to us. So please do take our survey when you have the time. We hope to see you again next week, but that was really enjoyable. So I was like, got a lot out of that. So thank you so much, Alejandro, for that, and see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all those nice hearts. And thank you, Colin, for hosting. Thank you, everyone.